Yeah.
State law requires this body to announce at this time that a copy of the current Open Meetings Act is available at the back of the room where it is accessible to the public. Weiss.
Here.
Keller.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Gibbons.
Here.
Arrington.
Here.
Hooper.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
All rise for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1, consent agenda. Approve this agenda. Pay the claims as submitted. Approve the treasurer's report for December 2022.
Make that motion.
Nick moves. Gail, second.
Weiss.
Yes.
Keller.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Arrington.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Item 2, approve the minutes of the January 3rd, 2023 special council meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Johnson, Ben,
I'll second.
and Trent, second.
Smith.
Yes.
Weiss.
Abstain.
Keller.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Arrington.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Item 3, approve the minutes of the January 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Ben and Nick.
Smith.
Yes.
Weiss.
Abstain.
Keller.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Arrington.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Item 4, the oath of office for Stacy Wolf.
I'll just have you right there. Raise your right hand.
Stay right there.
Yeah.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Stacy Wolf, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
I, Stacy Wolf, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion.
That I bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion.
And that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of city council member according to the law and to the best of my ability.
And that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of city council member according to the law and to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear that I do not advocate nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence.
And I do further swear that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence.
And that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence. So help me God.
And that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence, so help me God. Thank you.
No. Item 5, the public forum. This is an opportunity to speak out on anything that is not on the agenda. Laura, please state your name. We got 2 minutes.
My name is Lori Larson. I'm the CEO of the Holdrege Area Chamber of Commerce. I just would like to invite everyone listening and everyone here to Coffee with the Cop on Thursday, starting at 9 in the morning at 4th Avenue Coffee. Nice way to share some appreciation, cupping, and eat a treat.
Thank you. Item 6, presentation on the use of, oh, I'm sorry, was there any more for public forum? I'm sorry. All right, close public forum. Sorry about that. Item 6, presentation on the use of tax increment financing from Olson.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Joe Johnson with Olson. I was just in South Sioux City, up in the northeast part of the state, giving a presentation to their city council last night, and the school board, and the NRD, and the county up there. So it was a really interesting conversation. This is the same one that I'll give tonight. But it was an interesting dynamic last night because, you know, typically the county, the school, the NRDs, other taxing authorities view TIF in kind of a negative light. But they're up there in South Sioux City, Dakota County, they really viewed it as a community improvement opportunity. And I shared some numbers with them. Their school district's been dwindling, and if it wasn't for TIF, then they wouldn't have housing, they wouldn't have jobs, things of that nature that grow the community. So very supportive of the TIF project up in that area. Just to let the council and the mayor know, I work on TIF projects every single day. I was working with the developer and the city today on 2 different projects in the state. So I've done TIF projects everywhere from Kimball, Scotts Bluff to Falls City, South Sioux City, all across the state. So, and why me? Why provide this? So, I used to sit in the shoes of Chris here. I used to be a city administrator for 15 years of my career. And when I first started in city administration, I wasn't where I needed to be with tax increment financing. I'd have developers come to the city and say, hey, I want to do this. And I didn't know what this was or that was. And so all this information here is kind of a 101 course on what TIF is and how it can be utilized. And just know that there's resources out there. So, So, I need to go back.
I think there's a little back on the bottom left if you have that board up, go over to the bottom left. Close that submenu. Now go to the bottom. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So what is TIF? So TIF is a method of capturing property taxes. So one of the myths is that you don't pay your property taxes if you have a TIF project. The real outcome is you pay your property taxes and the county assessor assesses your property however the county assessor assesses your property. So the difference is that you pay your taxes and the taxes come back to something to pay for some public infrastructure project of some sort. So you do capture, TIF is capturing that property tax increase, TIF is an incentive for redevelopment of substandard and blight in the state of Nebraska. Something has to be blighted or substandard before we can use TIF. It's not an exemption from paying your property taxes. So every TIF project continues to pay the property taxes just as is. So how does TIF work? So the city declares an area blighted or substandard. So that's a pretty lengthy study that occurs that examines just a whole bunch of different areas, and it does need to be classified as blight and as substandard. There's two definitions there, and they need to meet a certain criteria of those definitions and of those criteria in those things. So once it's blight and substandard, then the city approves a general redevelopment plan. And what this is that, okay, so there's blight and substandard. How are we going to address that? What types of projects do we want in the area? What type of infrastructure we want in the area? So it's just really a general redevelopment plan. Most of my redevelopment plans that I put together, I put any and all uses of tax increment financing. So that's the uses in that blight and substandard area. Then a developer comes to the table and says, hey, I would like to use some tax increment financing to help my project. And then we say, well, can you do the project without TIF? And they say yes or no, and then that's the but-for test. If they say no, then we use tax increment financing or work with them on tax increment financing. If they say yes, we just say go do the project. No TIF. So that's the but-for test in state statute. Then the CRA, the CDA, I think Holdrege has a CRA, right? So CRA, CDA, same thing within the state statute. The only difference is the CDA are you folks sitting around this table. The CRA is a separate board. So that's the only difference between the CRA and the CDA. So Community Redevelopment Authority, CDA, CDA, or CRA, evaluates the needs of that project. So usually we're working with numbers at that point, and there's a project at that point, and it comes before this CRA, CDA. Then it goes, then we draft redevelopment plan, cost benefit analysis, contracts, things like that. So that's when it becomes official. Then we forward all of that on to the Planning Commission. But the Planning Commission process built into the TIF process is only to ensure that the project matches the comprehensive plan future land use of the city. That's the only thing. So I know a lot of cities get hung up in this part here, and they put their planning commissions through a lot of heck that they don't need to be put through, because the Planning Commission's not there to talk about the merits of the project, not to approve the project. They're just simply there to say, yep, matches the future land use and the comprehensive plan. Check, move on. And actually some of them, in the state statute, it does say if the Planning Commission doesn't act within 30 days, then it's just considered mute and approved to match. So you can't avoid the Planning Commission, but just know that the Planning Commission's a volunteer board. And it's not the time or the place to argue the merits of the TIF project at that point. Don't do that to your Planning Commission. Then the CRA has a meeting, and after the Planning Commission, and then forwards that plan on to the city if they so choose to do. So this is an approval process here. Then it comes for you folks for final passage and approval. That's where we can handle the merits of the project if we want, and move the project forward. The pledge of tax increment financing, bonds, loans, notes, advances of money, or indebtedness. And all of that is in there because there's many ways to fund a TIF project. Most of them are developer driven. So what the city does is issue a paper note saying the value of this tax increment financing project is this value. Then that developer can take that note to a bank and say, if I build this amount of valuation, I'll get this amount of TIF, and then they can borrow against that paper note at that point. So then the project is implemented. So the thing to note here is that there's no added value, there's no tax increment financing. So what does that look like? So that looks like this. So every piece of property has some sort of valuation on it. Again, we don't control what the county assessor does. County assessor assesses property as it is right now and as it is developed. So what TIF is there's always a fixed valuation, a base valuation as we call it, and then there's something built on top of that that creates an added valuation on top of that. And that's what we're capturing for 15 years. Now there's an extreme blight, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that allows it to go to 20, but for this example, we're just going to use the standard everyday TIF. So, and then after that, after the 15 years of tax increment financing, then all that post valuation goes back to all the other taxing entities that weren't involved in this TIF project at the beginning. But all the taxing entities continue to receive their base valuation that they're receiving today. It's only the yellow part that gets diverted and pays for the TIF project. So what can TIF be used for? You can acquire property, demo sites, install public utilities, and install parking facilities, lighting shelters, parks, the cost of planning, design, and engineering, other costs incurred by the city, so legal costs, accounting costs, other similar costs to those, rehabilitation of existing structure, workforce housing, which I'll touch on. There's kind of a couple different ways we can use TIF on that. And then formerly used defense sites, so that's the Hastings, the Grand Islands that have these military installations that are no longer in operation. So if we were to ask the state legislature what their perfect example of a TIF project is, this would be it. So this is in every town within the state of Nebraska. So back in the 40s, the 50s, you used to have a gas station that was thriving, and over the years, new gas stations come in by the interstate. This one in town, middle of town, loses business. Then it becomes a auto mechanic shop. Then it becomes a small engine repair shop. Then it becomes a car lot, and then it becomes just personal storage on Main Street. So that's this was actually one of my first TIF projects. So the gentleman was just using this for storage. There's gas tanks still under the ground in this picture. The thing was just a mess. So we had a developer come to us and say, I want to build this. So they built this. We used tax increment financing to demo the site, including the tanks under the ground, put a remediation system. So behind this building, there's a trailer that's pumping air out of the ground to monitor the ground to make sure there's no seepage of that gas going to other sites. But so the base valuations didn't change. Every taxing authority still continues to collect the taxes as it was prior to the TIF project. Base valuation, that's what it was year to date, and I'll show you what that year to date means. Excess value, so this building, as improved, was close to $500,000. So the added tax, the TIF, if you were, it's ad valorem TIF, or TIF, is $120,000. So that $120,000, that's what we use to demo the site, pull the tanks, remediation, sidewalks, things of that nature. So what that looks like on an annual basis. So you can go to the State of Nebraska Revenue Department website. Every year they file a TIF document with the legislature per state statute. So this is what it looks like on a year-to-year basis for this project. So you can see how the base valuation hasn't changed. The excess valuation changes a little bit based on just the annual assessment by the county attorney or the county assessor. So everybody continues to, all the taxing entities continue to receive the base tax. The excess tax goes to the TIF project. So this is a prime example of what an ideal TIF project looks like. But we know there's no ideal TIF projects in the state, and It's a very creative tool that cities can use. So I'll give you an example. So my hometown is South Sioux City, and I had a high school friend that was a builder. He builds about 4 houses a year. He came to me and said, "Hey Joe, I got this piece of land. It hasn't been platted yet, but I'd like to put some houses in there. I can't pay for the infrastructure. I'm a small-time builder, and when I'm going and borrowing for 2 homes to build, I don't have any borrowing capacity to go build roads and things like that." So we did a TIF project here. That the actual city of South Sioux City, they have a CDA up there, and the CDA had excess funds, so the CDA put up the funding for this project. And I'll show you the reason why it was beneficial for this. But anyway, so base valuation of that bean cornfield was $14,000. That didn't change. So what we did is we did this. We put the street in. There's future extensions of this street, but we dropped 12 homes in here. So my friend, for the last 2.5 years, have been building homes just on this lot. So what that looks like from a TIF standpoint, there's the 14. Base valuation TIF, or the base valuation tax, was $308 that everybody shared in that wealth. Excess valuation, so this is, remember, this is 1 year old. So the value there was about $500,000 for being 1 year old, but now there's 12 houses there, so that'll be increased this year. So $9,000 year to date. What that looks like is this. So as we project it out, $9,000, he builds 10 more homes, then it becomes $62,000 a year. Puts 1 more home on that. Now we're at $120,000 for year 3, and that's the TIF moving forward. So that's a lot of information right there, but let me kind of show you how creative we can be with this. So up in South Sioux City, remember, let me go back this slide because I forgot to point out it. So up in South Sioux City, remember the CDA carried that cost of that construction, and the CDA, just like every government agency, doesn't want the budget to get out of whack. So in the first year, the base year, when you're doing the construction of the infrastructure and you're building homes, so there's no real added valuation until the county assessor comes by again and assesses those properties, there's going to be a gap. So there's going to be a funding gap in here. So my friend said, okay, we realize there's a funding gap. We realize that the infrastructure is going to be built, and I'm going to sell homes before the county assessor is going to come back and assess those projects, and we're going to capture the TIF off of that. So what he agreed to is a $5,000 per lot assessment. So as those lots sold, he was paying back to the city $5,000. And why that is important is the city being in a good financial position and not wanting to tax the citizens for that. Let me see if I can do this. If I can get on that little. Oh, here, there we go. So what we did is, so the TIF, so remember 21, we haven't got 23 yet. So the excess TIF is going to be climbing as we're building homes and bringing homes online. The assessment is that blue dot. So the TIF and the paid assessment carried the cost of that infrastructure. So the city's loan, principal and interest, was just less than $45,000. So it helped cover that gap and make the city whole as we move through the process. So very worthwhile. The deal with this one and why the CDA wanted this TIF is because this was strictly going to infrastructure. So they're going to bucket that TIF and build the next 12 lots. And then they're going to bucket that and build the next 12 lots. And we have this in, right now it's in 7 phases. And after all 7 phases are done, which is in about 10 years, the city will have an excess $1 million on this project. And we know that. My friend knows that. We know that. But what that is going to allow the city is to turn around and invest that $1 million into parks, trails, other things within this area. So At the end of the day, if we look back 15 years from now, after all these projects are completed, there'll be a much different scenario than cornfields and bean fields at this point. So, creative way we can use tax increment financing on that. So, a couple of changes that have been pretty substantial just over the years. There's been many changes legislatively to TIF. There will be more this year. There's always legislative changes. So one of those is a micro TIF, and a change to micro TIF that just happened last year. Usually originally presented, micro TIF was 10 years in length, not 15. Last year they bumped that back up to 15 instead of 10. But micro TIF, what that is so the city council continues to blight substandard, then passes a policy for micro TIF, and basically what it is a one-stop shop. So all those steps that we went through earlier, a micro TIF, you don't have to go through those. So what that list comprised of, so a single-family residential unit under 350,000 is eligible for micro TIF. Multifamily commercial structures, $1 million in TIF. $1 million, $1.5 million in valuation is eligible for TIF, and then revitalization of a nationally registered or historic place is of $10 million is available for TIF. So what that means is, well, let me give you an example of that. So micro TIF, what we found in other communities, particularly smaller communities than Holdrege, is they're doing infill lots with micro TIF. So in an area that's blighted substandard within the community, they're offering micro TIF to people to demo houses, maybe a 100-year-old home, and build a $350,000 home in its place. And they'll offer micro TIF for it. So it's a one-page document. So after you pass all this stuff and approve the micro TIF, then somebody can come in, fill out the one page, and it's approved. Doesn't go through all those public hearing processes, it's just approved. So communities are really utilizing that for some infill lots within the community to drive kind of that revitalization of neighborhoods. So micro TIF's one that's kind of a game changer. And then workforce housing and extreme blight. I'm going to throw in these two in the same kind of category. Extreme blight, there's only one extreme blight in the state, and that's in Omaha for the streetcar project, if you've heard about that one. Extreme blight really has to go through some rigorous additional steps to get the extreme blight. And it all revolves around population, income, housing, income, and all of that. Delinquent tax records, really things that require you to dig in. I would be surprised if we seen extreme blight utilized in smaller communities less than Omaha and Lincoln, because you're going to dig into financials of homes and you have to put that on paper. So if you're not talking about a big neighborhood to do this in, somebody's going to be able to find out your personal information through that report. So it's difficult to disguise it in smaller communities to do extreme blight. So just know that there's one. It's in Omaha. It's for the streetcar. So workforce housing. So this one is an interesting one. So I need to point out though. So there's two kind of workforce housing within the legislative. Just within the state statutes of the legislature. So one is the Rural Workforce Housing Investment Act. That's different than the TIF. So as you can see from the maximum valuations, so in the Rural Workforce Housing Investment Act, it's 325 is the maximum valuation. Within the TIF, it's still 225. So the TIF is controlled by the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. They have to change that number. They haven't adjusted that number for the TIF. So, Ron probably can tell you more about the Rural Workforce Housing Investment Act. It's a grant application. You apply for those. They use the same definitions as the TIF and the Investment Act, but I just wanted to point that out. So, But the $250,000 for workforce development, it's a pretty interesting concept, but there's an economy of scale that has to be met. So you're not going to use rural workforce housing for 1, 2, 3 houses. It's really meant for putting down 20 houses at a time. And the difference with rural workforce housing, TIF, is that you don't have to put it into infrastructure. You can actually collect up to 30% back on the properties you sell. So 30% back on $250,000 straight into the developer's pocket once the taxes are paid. So that's the real difference. But you really can't capture that full 30% as a developer if you're building one house at a time. So I use the example of 15 to 20 houses because that would keep a contractor plus their subs busy for a year. So you're buying everything in bulk. You're having all your contractors give you bulk rate for a year to build just one house right after another to keep your subs moving. Other than that, it makes 0 sense to use workforce housing TIF. It's better spent on infrastructure at that point. Because remember that using rural workforce housing TIF, they still have to put in that infrastructure. The city's not putting in that infrastructure. So to maximize that or to capture that, you need those economies of scale to do that. So benefits of TIF. It provides obviously incentive for redevelopment in substandard and blighted areas. Requires no tax increase. Again, the city's not coming and increasing anybody's taxes. The county assessor still assesses property the exact same way they always have. Increases property valuation. Remember, we're going from that base valuation to something, a more valuation. Creates a stronger, broader tax base. If we have all this dilapidated property that's not being redeveloped, we're not improving our tax base at that point. This one's a huge one, locally controlled. So this is the only locally controlled incentive that the city of Holdrege has. You don't have to apply to the state. You don't have to apply to the federal government. There's nobody watching after you. There's no watchdog group from the state legislature, although they want that. There's nothing in place. This is locally controlled, the only locally controlled incentive that the city of Holdrege has at their disposal. Creates incremental value and reinvest in the TIF district. It benefits other taxing bodies. So what that means is after the 15 years, but for TIF, this project wouldn't happen. So after the 15 years, they get all that windfall of property taxes at that point. So that's it. There's a lot of ways we can be creative with the deployment of TIF. So I'll go back to the original example that I started with in South Sioux City. So South Sioux City has a pretty migrant population. They move in, they move out. Their school district suffers because of that. So, and the city really needs to prevent that type of activity of moving into the community, moving out of the community. So they went away from providing TIF for apartment complexes and incentivized the building of single-family residential. Also, last night at their city council meeting, they put in a policy that if the TIOSA formula, that's the school funding formula, changes, that they'll work with the school district to revamp TIF and the use of TIF there. So very community-driven tool. We can use it just about however we want in deployment of whatever the community needs. So, any questions?
You know, are they set to increase that number?
15 years?
No, the conflicting numbers up there, the 250 to the 325.
The workforce housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've brought it up to. I think DED just forgot about it because they have nothing to do with TIF. even though the state legislature gave them that authority to control that number. So it was, I was a part of a group that brought that to their attention a couple months ago. So we're hoping that they do. Yeah, yeah. But I will say, so there are communities that that don't want that to increase. Now I realize it's hard to build a $250,000 home, you know, just in this day and age. But if we want workforce housing, workforce, especially like new teachers, new individuals at the hospital, and new professionals in the community, they can't afford a $350,000, $320,000 home. So we have to incentivize that somehow. And if we can use TIF to incentivize that and to encourage those to build $250,000 homes, I think we should be doing that. I mean, so if we move the goal to 350, then the goal becomes 350. But if we keep it at 250, then we can produce those results. So, yeah. So, you know, I work with developers that build homes all day long, and they would love it to be 350, 325,000. So,
sure they would.
Yeah. So, but again, I mean, if we're wanting to develop the community, we need those types of homes. So, we'll see. It will be increased. I'm confident that it will. So, yeah. Other questions? If not, thank you.
Very informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Item 7, approve Casey Smith as a new member of the Holdrege Volunteer Fire Department. I believe everybody got the letter from Greg, and I think it speaks very highly of her. And entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Yeah. Corey. Sorry. Yeah. Corey and Larry.
Tiller,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Euchre,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Lees.
Yes.
Item 8, to approve an application for liquor license manager from the hotel, or Holdrege Hotel Group LLC, for Cobblestone Inn and Suites manager Heather Schaefer. And again, I think the form that was submitted, it looks like she has all of the credentials that are needed. Motion to approve?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Trent and Dale.
Johnson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Lees,
Yes.
Tiller,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Euchre.
Yes.
Item 9, approve the submission of a grant application for rural workforce housing. Did Ron want to say anything?
Just
Don't yell at him, Brian, please.
Did you need us for anything else?
Nope, don't think so.
Okay.
Sorry, trying to do a deal.
That ordeal was going on.
Sorry. How can I help?
So we're at the approval for the submission of the grant application for the rural workforce housing. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, been working with Chris to develop this application, It is a no-match application, so there's no requirement for the city of Holdrege to provide any funding for this. We're applying for a grant. It's called the Rural Workforce Housing Land Development Grant. It would enable us to acquire, the city to acquire a parcel of land that's already platted, and then use the other funding to do the site preparation, stormwater drainage, and drinking water infrastructure. So the total grants for $566,440. And then PCDC, in a separate grant application, is applying for rural workforce housing funds that we would use to complete the development of the property and to attract a developer to build both new rental units and single-family or owner-occupied dwellings on the property. So these kind of go hand in hand.
Do you know how many is expected?
How many?
Units.
We're looking at a 20-unit apartment building at minimum. It could grow slightly larger than that. But we've plugged in 20 units onto the site plan, I think, that you have there. And then the remaining lots would be developed either with single-family detached or duplex-style townhomes, similar to the ones that were built in Crew subdivision.
Quite a few lots there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's 26 platted now. We would convert some of those into for use with the apartment building. So we've also discussed this with Kim, and we think that we would maintain, at this point, we're planning to maintain the same street layout, and then remove one of the bubbles or whatever you call it on the end of the cul-de-sac, and then that street would dead end into the parking lot of the apartment building.
Would it be possible that maybe another apartment complex, see here you have it on 16th, what is you're calling 16th, at the end of 17th, and possibly doing another type of apartment, or
well, we'll work with the developer, and they'll make an analysis of what the housing demand is and how big that apartment building really should be. They've got plans that range from either a 20-unit up to a 36-unit apartment building. And it's a little early to be making a firm commitment on that.
These grants, I presume, won't help with Hill Street development with it?
No, sir. Sorry.
Okay, glad I'd asked.
Any other questions?
So if we get, say we're approved for the grant, does the city just hold on to the money to cover the infrastructure? Do we write a check to LB 840 account, or what do we do with it?
It goes to the city. City will use that to acquire the property, and all of the other development will occur through the city.
That would be the whole, this whole
Addition.
The whole addition.
Everything that's budgeted in the grant,
Okay, I see.
for land acquisition, all of the engineering, title work, legal work, the construction of the water lines and engineering of the water lines. And then, you know, there's more to be done outside of the grant. But that's to be determined.
But after the grant, the city owns that property?
Yes. And then the city will make a determination how they want to convey it to a developer or some other entity. We have early indications of interest from developers that would like to build apartments. We have not gotten to the point where we haven't got a verbal agreement or any interest yet on the townhouses or single-family homes that will be built there, but we believe that'll come.
But the apartment complex is a go, or it's just, and I, you know?
We have a very serious
Okay.
interest from the developer, once we control the property and get the infrastructure underway. And at some point, tax income financing would likely come into play on this property as well, as you just heard.
Anything else?
Is there a downside to approving this, holding, I mean, and it, the building stalls somewhat? What's the downside?
The money has to be expended within 2 years, I believe, of the award. So we have to move forward fairly quickly to get the property improved. But then, if development doesn't move forward, we've got an improved property that we can market to somebody else.
Ron, is there a plan for the rest of the infrastructure? I know this grant will cover some of the site prep and the construction and management of the drinking water lines, but what about street, sewer?
We haven't gotten that far
Okay.
yet. We'll have to have that designed, but that will, again, would work with the
Probably
city
TIF funds
administrator.
or something along those lines, I would assume.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
Can I ask, in past projects, has it come to the city council in this way, in these steps? Is this pretty normal? Is this out of the ordinary?
I can't recall another project like this, Lola, that we could compare it to.
Okay.
This is the result of the state receiving significant funding through ARPA.
Okay.
And the Department of Economic Development has created a number of programs to assist primarily rural communities like ours to invest that money in things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to do.
Can I ask the other council members on other projects where you guys have been here? Do you have questions on this? Things that you've seen and been invested in and stuff?
Well, this is a lot different than any one we've ever done before, so, I mean, that's where we have questions. We don't want to make an uneducated decision since this is new to us. My holdup, Ron, is, for example, so say in the future we get this, once we purchase the land, I mean, my stance on it is the city doesn't want to be in the real estate business.
Right.
So then once again, we're creating a problem for ourselves here by, again, buying property.
Yeah.
So what do we do after that point to where the city doesn't lose money, but we don't have to deal with it?
Well, I think there are a number of options available to us, and the CRA can play a pivotal role in something like this to actually step in and be the developer or play a pivotal development role in this project. I think it'd be a great project for them to sink their teeth into. Added to that, we're going to have developers that are interested in doing housing projects here. And the city's not in a position where it necessarily needs to make a profit on the property once it's developed. So you can convey that to a developer at a very attractive, affordable price. And PCDC's role in this is we're going to be shaking the bushes really, really vigorously to find developers that want to work with us and work with the city on this.
And with this size of a project, 26 lots and an apartment complex, do you have any idea of like a time frame? Or do you have like a step procedure, like where you plan on being in a year?
With award of the grant, which would come this spring, I would hope to move very quickly to get the infrastructure that is funded by this grant completed, and then move quickly to get the rest of the infrastructure, the streets, the sewer, lighting, power, all of those things engineered and under construction as quickly as possible so that next construction season we could start seeing things planted in on that property. Get as much done this year as we can.
So you're hoping by the spring of '24, you're
Yeah.
building houses?
I'd like to see that. The apartment building will probably come first, and then the duplex style townhouses after that.
It's gonna really be pushed out if we don't get nothing or know anything till spring and try to get all that done yet this year with.
That's one of the challenges that the Department of Economic Development has had, is to write these programs, get them pushed out to the local communities, and then still get the money expended in the time frame that the federal government has you know, the brackets that they put around it. It's a pretty aggressive timeline.
Yeah, no kidding.
This grant is due next week, so in order for us to submit the application, we need City Council approval and authority to submit along with it.
Questions, comments?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Ben?
I'll
Moves.
second.
Trent seconds. Smith?
Yes.
Weiss?
Yes.
Tiller?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
Euchre?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Something new.
Thanks,
We'll
Ron.
keep you posted.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
See how it goes.
Quickly, so it's gotta go.
Quickly.
No dilly-dally on that.
We don't do something good somewhere else.
Agenda item number 10, consider the mayor's appointment of a member to the Holdrege Airport Authority to fulfill the term of Dan Powers expiring December 18th, 2026. At this time, I would like to submit Ashley Maloli to fill the open position on the Holdrege Airport Authority. I've had conversations with Ashley. She is a pilot, and she has worked with the board in the past on past projects. She's a local businesswoman, and I believe her to be she will be a good addition to the board.
Make that motion to approve.
Nick and Cory.
Weiss?
Yes.
Tiller?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
Euchre?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations. Report for duty Friday morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Item 11, consider the second reading of ordinance 2462 regarding the registration of vacant property in Holdrege, Nebraska.
I will note that there was a redundancy in the time described to be in effect. It was in there twice, so I took one of those out. I didn't call it amended agenda because all I did was remove the redundancy.
Okay.
Second reading, ordinance 2462. An ordinance to add Article 10, Sections 1001 through 1008 regarding the registration of vacant property to Chapter 9 of the Holdrege Municipal Code. To repeal all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. To provide for the severability of all parts hereof. To order the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form, and to designate the time described when this ordinance shall be in effect. Be it ordained by the mayor and council of the city of Holdrege, Nebraska.
Motion,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
okay. Larry and Dale.
Harrington.
Yes.
Euchre.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Tiller.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Thank you. Open discussion. We'll start with the chief, please.
First off, I'd like to introduce two of my new officers here. We have Stephen Johnston and Kobe Quintana. They both just got back from the training center, both on the streets now. So working nights and evenings. So feel free to chat with them anytime you want. Get to know them. So very proud of you.
Welcome, guys.
Coffee at the top, but they might be.
I'm sure they had fun down there, didn't they?
Anyway, other than that, like I said, got a grant or received some money from the foundation from the Gift to Grow, about $5,600, and then I just got another $750 donation as well from the foundation. So.
Right. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey.
So I want to make sure that everybody that wants has told me to register them for the league conference. We have 6 people counting Chris, so 5 council members going this year, which is just outstanding.
Great.
So far, if anybody else wants to go, there's plenty of time. They are running out of rooms, so for you to stay in.
What was the date on that again?
27th to 28th.
Okay. Anything else to say?
I got a couple of personal questions, but I'll get to those after the meeting.
Okay.
We'll be releasing a bid package for the ball field in the coming weeks for contractors to build on the irrigation, seeding or sodding, and the final grade and the prepping of the infield. So we'll bring that back probably sometime, I'm guessing in March for the council approval.
Okay.
So that's all I've got for tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Nick.
Welcome. Yeah, last week. Thank you. On that note, good luck, Kim and your guys and Brian. That's it.
Welcome. Good luck. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, ditto. Welcome. Thanks for sticking your neck out, for lack of a better word. Appreciate your stepping forward. Also, question. Anybody know anything about the stagnant movement on the sidewalk repair and that at the railroad property there for the handicap accessibility? That fence is set there. They've been doing all that construction there, and the fence has been up for 2 months and nothing.
It's a company through Amtrak that's doing it. When they removed it, he told me they were going to try and get it put back immediately. Maybe they got called off. I don't know. I can contact this Craig and ask him.
If you could, that'd be
but
great.
This is not the time to pour it back.
Right. Well,
but I will see if he can give me some sort of report and then email it to the council.
Excellent.
I did see an electric permit about a week ago on it, so I was thinking maybe something was going again, but I haven't heard any more than seeing that permit.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale?
Yeah, welcome Stacy to the group.
Thank you.
Again, and Ashley.
Thank you.
And the 2 new officers, glad to have you on the police force, and appreciate your effort and all the training and everything you've been through. So appreciate you being a part of the community. And we also set in on a Midtown Sculpture Committee meeting today. And so some plans are being made and things we're starting to go forward on that project. And so anyway, that's really about it.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'd just like to welcome everybody back to the new system again, and we'll have fun and enjoy yourself, and the best of luck to all of you. Okay? You too.
Stacy.
I don't have anything except welcome.
Thank you. Lola?
Welcome to all the new faces at City Council. And I would like to suggest, after reading some of my predecessor's paperwork from his 8 years, I came across some paperwork that regarding a council retreat. So I would like to suggest that we plan that sooner than later, maybe after we come back from municipal conference. And because I just think there are things that, from his information, that I would like to readdress, maybe things that didn't get completed or moved on during his term.
I think that's a yearly thing, is that right, or?
It's totally up to the council and you and the administrators.
Okay, all right.
We haven't had one for quite some time.
Last year.
I think we had one last year.
Yeah, we have one last year.
Yeah.
This is
In the spring,
Yeah.
it was.
At least in my first year we had
A
one.
year ago.
Something like
A
that.
year,
I remember
almost
that.
2 years.
Yeah. I've had one in the last 2 years.
Well, it's kind of
But it was
after
good.
that, yeah.
It was real good.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely. Okay.
Again, I guess echo everyone else, welcome, thank you everyone for your willingness to serve. And I guess to everyone here and watching, be safe the next couple days, plan ahead, help each other out.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything tonight.
Thank you. Kim?
Just bear with us. I don't know how much we're gonna get, but if we do get the amount that they're talking about, we will be doing residential streets. They say it's supposed to quit about midnight the next night, so that's probably when we'll be out doing the entire town. So we'll be upsetting people that have scooped their walk already and whatnot, but this is when I get all my good phone calls. So.
You're who to call.
Tyler McClyman up on West 14.
I don't have it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, and I will echo that and be safe over the next couple of days, and